Welcome back to Top of the World. Welcome to part 2 of restoring, fixing, repairing the burnt out Massey Ferguson. So I've been to town, we took off all the hydraulic hoses and the water hoses and anything else that I could get from my hose man Traktor repair stuff. And behind me I've got new hoses, new hydraulic hoses, new diesel lines. Some of the things I need to start putting back what I've taken off. So it's quite evident from the melted plastic and wiring that's still lying around, I haven't completely disassembled the Traktor, and there's a reason for that. I'm trying to do it in a way that firstly I understand where the damage is and what I'm repairing, and secondly the wiring is such a mess I've got to deal with it as a separate issue, as well as the hydraulic hoses, the water lines, diesel lines, stuff like that. I also got the main battery cables that were also burnt out. So I'm going to do the wiring by starting, once I fitted the hydraulic hoses and put back everything that I took off underneath the Traktor and rerouted them, and that basically fixes the hydraulic system. And then I'm going to work from the battery back through all the wiring. Before I do that, there's a new rocker cover gasket and new stuff to replace on the top of the engine where the heat was. I haven't taken this rocker gasket off yet. It's going to be messy inside there if the state of the diesel tank is anything to go by, because the fire was here. This was the seat of the fire, the battery, the wiring. The diesel tank sits here and the fire went underneath and over the top of the diesel tank. Amazing really that it's only in the condition it's in. So the first thing we're going to do is put back all the hydraulic lines and complete the hydraulic system. So this is the entire kit for the radiator for the water system. In here is my biggest concern where I'm saving this job for a rainy day, is that I forget where I was, which is why I now want to work on the hydraulic system. That's part of the water system. Here we have new battery connectors and the diesel line. And here are the reassembly parts for one of the hydraulic lines. I have to understand where I've been. Right, that's a complete new hydraulic hose to replace. This is to replace the flow into the hydraulic switch system there. Right, that's for the heat into the cab. And this is the supply from the hydraulic pump, and I couldn't get this off. So that there is the replacement cable for that, I think. Yeah. So when I was taking this apart, the supply hydraulic line from the pump, I couldn't disassemble this. So I took it directly off from the main housing, and I couldn't undo this. And we tried to undo this also at the hose maker, and we couldn't get it off, and we ended up just rounding this off and making a right mess. So what he did was we made this an inch longer, and we put a steel line fitting on the end of this hose. So what I'm going to do is cut this off and then position this new one back on, which is essentially what this is. Okay. Should just leave that loose until I think I might just leave that loose until I get it into position. Okay, I've got this one routed. I've got to do some work underneath. This one, the return line, that's fascinating. So it squeezes in here, and you can see this steel line is actually bent to allow it to accommodate. And then it's got a squeeze through there, like we can see better from within here. So it comes in there, roots through there, comes out here. We're actually going over here. It comes out right next to this high-low shifter. We're going to have to squeeze that in a bit more. So there's, I've tightened this connection up and connected this one up here. This one runs down here. It's actually held in place with toy wraps, believe it or not. Anyway, we've got to pull that one back a bit more, but before we tighten this one off, I just want to push this return line through on the hydraulic side. It's got to go through a ways yet, and then it goes through and connects up in there. Oh, okay, it's going in a bit easier than it was. Quite an ordeal to get that one out. Okay, so then when you're taking these fittings apart, they have copper washers. This is the fitting for this end. Oh yeah, it is. Okay. Right. Got myself confused there. I'm not sure what that is. This was such a difficult thing to get out. Okay, so then that goes on there. With Jubilee clips, hose clamps, whatever you call them. But that was because it's a non-pressurised return line. There we go. All the way home. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's quite a confined space for us all to be in, but we should be able to make it work. Okay. Okay, so that's the return hydraulic hose routed in place, and the supply to the accessory, which we just need to finish off routing that one. And then on this side we have to finish routing that. And then this one goes on to here. Okay, so that concludes the hydraulic system now. This was burnt through, that was burnt through, and that finishes the hydraulic accessories, which is for the front bucket. So that's flow and return lines replaced back to the transmission and pump. But before I replace these, they go like this, hook down and then underneath there for the cab heating. I've got to deal with the alternator issue. So as part of doing this work, there was always a problem with the charging on this machine, and this alternator not doing what it should be doing, and therefore needed replacing. Did that have anything directly to do with what happened? Who knows? Who knows? But I do know we have over here a new alternator, a new belt and bracket. None of that looks like that wants to... Anyway, and hardware. So, before we put the water lines in along here, that are going to be in my way, let's just change out this alternator. Where's the adjusting? Oh, there. Okay, I can see some issues with this before I start. So as well as sending me the parts, my friends very kindly sent me this. Right. What am I even supposed to do with that? I'll tell you what that is useful for. If you wanted to light a fire, to set fire to a tractor, you could use that. And that goes in there, and then that hits all that hits all this. So the bracket's the wrong way around. Needs to be much higher. That's wrong. That's wrong in every way. and it can't go any other way. There's only one way this can go. And the way it is wrong. It's no good. It doesn't work. Can't have it that way. Right, that's ridiculous. Can't have it that way. That's ridiculous. It can only go that way. It can only go one way. This bracket. And it's wrong. Maybe I should have a look at them instructions. Well, I don't need to. I don't need to look at those instructions. It's common sense. This wheel has to be in line directly with those three. Does that do it with a bit of jiggery pokery? That's the adjuster there, but you've got this, right? Could you have set this up higher? Yeah, you could, but the bracket is wrong to have this up higher. Right, it's down there, and that's no good. And look at how different it is to where the belt is. This is not the right bracket. If that was up there, welded differently, then it would work. Right? It's just ridiculous. It's a waste of my time, that's what it is. It's a waste of my time. This is a waste of my time. This. It's wrong. This is wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Everything about it's wrong. It's a waste of my time. That's what that is. Okay, so I've just gone up and had a look into Olsson's parts. Right, it's a Swedish company, well known for tractor parts, always very good. On their website, when it comes to this kit that he's bought to upgrade this, it says very clearly, note, if the Traktor is fitted with power steering pump, some modification may be required. End quote. So there's the alternator, there's the adjustment bracket, there's the new bracket. Bracket does go like that. So once you've put the said bracket into place, and this is how it's designed to go, according to their website and their pictures and their technical information. And then this hangs off of here, and this winds all the way in and connects onto this. Right, only none of that can happen because this is in the way. So the belt they provided, they don't say this, obviously, but the belt they provided is also going to be way too small. So the belt's no good, but they don't give you an option of buying the replacement belt of the right size, nor do they give you any indication of how to modify that. Well, you can't modify this. You have to bin that because it's shit, right? It's not fit for purpose when it comes down to a tractor with a power steering pump in any way whatsoever at all. It's not even remotely fit for any purpose. So if we ignore the fact that they've sold a kit that says it's suitable for a tractor with power steering, which it's not, Olsson parts, not suitable for a tractor with power steering at all. This is a generic generator, alternator, right? It will work with anything. However, we now have to fabricate something from scratch. Whatever we do, right, we can be assured this belt is no good. We've got to forget the belt, so we've got to line all this up so that we can have this. It has to bolt in there. You can't see this, there's two holes there. It has to bolt in there, and then you have to have movement on this bar here in order to be able to tighten and loosen the belt without interfering with any of this. You can't rub on it, you can't touch it. So that being the case, I need the alternator there. Am I going to get enough? And we're going to have to order a special belt. So I basically need the alternator to go there. Do you know what I think? I think this bracket would work if these were up the other way. So why didn't they produce the same bracket but with these taken off and welded up the other way? So why don't they sell the two different brackets? And then it would work, because you need to raise the alternator up. Once you've raised the alternator up in its new position, is it going to impact the hood that goes over the top? Probably. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to grind those out. Take them off, turn around, weld them back on. If that was there, would that work? Yeah. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. And I know what some of you are thinking. Well, that's a lot of work, Simon. Right, just so we're all very clear, including the owner, who's a friend, I'm paid by the hour. That might take 2 or 3 hours to do that. Okay, so this is the bracket we had. I've ground out the welds. And I've got it into its component pieces. That's really hot. So this is what we had. Right, and this is what we want. We need the bracket to be like that. And then I think once it's this way round, right, we got a good chance of it working. But before we weld that together, which is quite hot, before we weld this back together, I think we can dry run it on the Traktor without doing anything and just see if we're on the right road. How easy would it be to produce 2 types of brackets? One with power steering, one without. Or, if this bracket works, why wouldn't you just produce all the brackets to work with the non-power steering, with the power steering version, than with a non-power steering version? And then you've got to, supply the right size belt, which is going to be bigger. Let's take this out and try it. So what I could have done is I could put a small tack weld on this just to hold it in place while I'm trying, but I'm going to do it even more rudimentary than that. Oh, the ice cream van. Well, you're in the Arctic, Simon. You don't have ice cream. Yeah, we do. In the Arctic. And what's funny, what's even funnier, which I had trouble getting my head around, is he comes in the winter. I've been to the ice cream van on a snowmobile. Right. And if I have that like that, and then that like that, yeah. Okay. We have that like that. We have the adjustment bar. We have to lengthen this or move it, and then we have to have a bigger belt. And that'll work like that. Is that going to have... Yeah, it's going to have an impact on the hood. Of course it is, but that's how it's got to work. So by just taking these off and welding them up the other way... Oh, well, why do I keep forgetting? That's so hot. Right, bugger it. So this is the way the bracket is that they send you a standard down. And then they tell you there's got to be an alteration if you've got a power steering pump. Well, why don't they just provide one bracket like that and the right size belt? And then it wouldn't matter whether you've got power steering or not. Or, as I suspect, when you put the alternator on like this is too short, right? Does it involves perhaps too much sinking for all some parts, this? And does it then encumber in some way the hood that comes over the top, which we'll have to, you know, adapt to do it. Yeah, I think it's just lack of thought. If they supplied all the brackets like this, then you've got all these other problems. Well, yeah, but it would fit every model, as opposed to just saying it's got to be adapted. Anyway, we can just, don't worry about all their lack of ingenuity. We'll just put both on like this, weld them up like that, put the bracket on, and then I think this we can move to this bolt here. Lower down at a bigger angle, but it actually lengthened the bar. And then I think we'll have enough adjustment, and then all we've got to do is take a measurement of the belt we need and get the correct size belt. Right, let's whip that off and weld it up, because it's getting towards the end of the day. It's getting towards the end of my day. Right, well that's cooled now. Never see that again. So while we was waiting for that to cool down, we've actually already moved this from here to here. Now there is a downside to that, is this is further out than this. So I don't know if I'm going to have to bend this or manipulate this in some way, but I'm pretty sure it's got to be moved down here. But they're not in line. So I don't know if this rode on the outside or the inside of the alternator previously, and I don't know if by moving it down, now it's moved back, I have to run it on the inside, but we'll go and get the bracket now and fit that. So my welding was so good on this, no need to grind it down and all that, just knock off the slag and paint it. Isn't it funny how they send a bolt with this, but no nut? Well, where's the nut then? Does that even? Oh yeah. Okay. Just before I get too carried away. Wow, give me strength. Is that threaded? No. Right, that's working. Okay, that's in the right place now, that don't hit any of that. But this is no good there. So that didn't work. Can we get it to work there? Not really. Where can we get it to work? No, no, definitely not. Well, that would work there. Would work. Get it? No. So now it looks like we've got to adapt this as well. Not just the bracket, but we need a much longer one of these. Could we Right, we're just gonna weld an extension onto this to where I need it, back there to make that bar. Yeah, it will work, but I can see how that's likely to impede. Maybe, I don't know. We're going to have to do some measuring here, I think. Anyway, that's where it's got to be. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can do about that at all. Are the pulleys in line? Yep. Pulleys are in line. Not sure that's in line. Oh yeah, it will be once it's bolted up. Yeah, okay. We just need to tighten that off and then make this adjusting bracket, and then we can measure it for a new belt, and then finally we can get back to the water system. So when you uprate this with the alternator, you will also need, although this needed it anyway, you will also need a new ignition switch as supplied by Olsen. Right, that doesn't say Massey Ferguson on it, does it? Okay, so you will also need a new ignition switch and a light. I'm not quite sure why you need the light, but anyway. Okay. Right, that's on and mounted. I need to find a nut and a washer for this, because for some reason I only sent bolts. Or not unless I'm missing something and there's nuts in there. Is there a packet of nuts in there? No, there isn't. There's no nuts, just bolts. Okay. So I need to find a nut for that side, and then I've got to replace all this wiring anyway, but then I'll have to replace from the old push connectors to the round connectors and uprate this. Now I kind of intended to do that anyway and bought a new set of electrical connectors to do that with. And we're going to replace all of this wiring whilst we're at it. Although, you know, it's not looking too bad. I think a bit of tape. Yeah, a bit of tape probably be alright. Okay, that's the end of today. And what a horrible day it's been. And we'll be back on the next raining day. No, it's not another rainy day. It's not a very nice day. I just woke up this morning excited to get back onto this. So here I am. So problem solved. So I've welded an extension bar onto there, come off the original nut. We've got a full adjustment on there. We've reworked the bracket on top. I found a belt that's almost the right size, but would give me a good indication. I have got some more adjustment left. Give me a good indication where I'm going for a new belt. Everything is in line as it should be, and we're completely clear of the power steering pump, and we're not going to impact the hood because this side is open. Both sides are open, in fact. So we're all good. Okay, so that's the new alternator. Fitted, fully adjustable, easy to adjust, and in place. So now we can go back to water pipes, water system. So we've got to replace this hose here, this corner hose here, and then the hose going from here and here back to the cab heat. And then we can, I think, at that point, we're ready to start working on electrics. Oh no, we've got to do that. So let's do these water pipes. I also got a new breather hose. So let's do the water pipes and the breather hose and get everything finished at the front here. Yeah, let's do that. Well, that's a mess. Okay, well, I'm surprised that wasn't leaking. Okay. Yeah, old. Right, let's get all that cleaned off. No. So we've got the gasket, but there's no rubber seals that go back on the rocker cover. No, maybe we'll find some O-rings to put on there. So the inside of the rocker cover was quite badly burned. So I've had to do a lot of cleaning up on that and then paint it. So while waiting for the paint to dry, I've removed the 2 diesel lines that cross over here, because this element here, this is the engine heater. So we're going to take this out to see what we find. And this is where things could not go well when we get into this, because we're not quite sure what's behind door number 1. It looked like any kind of conventional... Right, that tells us we're in the water jacket. Anyway. I think I'm just going to remove this plate completely for a minute, just while we're dealing with that. So I'm fascinated by that, because this is way above the lower pipe, which has already been drained of fluid. So I'm kind of fascinated why fluid's coming out of there. Anyway, irrespective of all that, being careful not to damage the diesel lines. Does this unscrew or does this pull out? It's coming, I think. This is where you hurt your knuckles. Nice. Okay. So that's kind of, I don't even know, there's no rubber seal in there, and there's no, oh yeah, there is. Okay, there's a rubber O-ring on that. Right, so let's get the replacement. And of course this is nothing like what we've just taken out. There's no way that's going to screw round in there. That's not even going to fit. Oh, here it is. So you can't screw that into there. So what's this then? Right, that's a core. How do you seal that in there without any rubber? So this is just an engine core there. Maybe this is just tapered if we clean this. It does appear to be tapered, I've got to say. Okay, let's get a wire wheel and clean that up. It would appear you fit this the same way as you do a core plug. Okay, this is not seating the way that I think it should. Oh, that's better. Right. So you kind of fit that like you do a core plug then. Right. And then you take this unit, which is the new unit, which hopefully you can still get in there. Right, well, every day's a new challenge. You know how it is. Oh, there we go. Right, that's too long. Well, help me understand. So it's like this bit here is too long because it's not allowing the thread to, and you can't slide it down because they're welded in place. So it's like the distance between there and there is too long. It's not allowing me to be able to get hold of the thread. And if you try and wind that in like that, all it's going to do is it's going to pull this out. So, I'm not... So it's another one of those generic things, like this is the right thing, and actually it's not. Because the bend is not. And you can't alter the bend because you won't get it in there. And you can't put it in there when it's already done up. Obviously. Well, that's left me in an interesting predicament. So if this was any shorter, you couldn't get it in, and once it's in, this is now hitting the back of the block inside, so you can't do this up, and this is not movable. And even if it was movable, and this is on the back of the block, and you try and over-pressurise that, well, there's two things can happen. Three things. You bend this and destroy this, you crack the block inside, or you pull this core straight back out the engine. But you'll see from that, right, the threads don't actually meet. And even if you did, you've got the best part of 20, 22, 25 mil, 3/4 of an inch. And to demonstrate what I mean, this is the one that came out. And you can see the distance between that and the bend. And this is the one we've got, which is difficult enough just to get in and out of the hole. Right, there. And there lies our problem. Wrong. Again. Alright, so here we are back on the bench. I've removed the circlip from this. I'll just pull that out. Okay. See what we've got. Going on here. Okay, so you've got an O-ring in there. So these plates here are welded, brazed. Anyway, you can't move this up or down to alter this length here. Here's the old one. So you can see the interface here with the engine, and then it immediately turned and went in. And this is the problem we have. So to the engine, the electrical connector to the engine, right, same length. When we get here, this is the scenario we've got. And this just doesn't work for us. It just doesn't work at all. Because once you get inside the engine block, you've immediately got a secondary housing and the water jacket, which is the pistons, and the water jacket goes round it. And this fits just inside that water jacket and heats the water, which goes around the engine and heats the oil and allows it to start in the extreme Arctic conditions. However, this is what we've got here. So firstly, can I straighten this without damaging it? right? And then can I rebend it there without damaging it? And then if I do, this is going to be much longer than this. Can I actually get it in there once I've altered this? Do they do another one? They say this fits, right? So this is another Olsen's part, generic, whatever it is, made in Sweden. Well, it definitely doesn't fit. Definitely does not fit. So we've removed this from this screw housing, and it goes in and out there quite easily. But if we imagine, right, that this, wherever the end of that is the end of that thread, that's how we need it to look. So on that basis, once that's inserted, we need it to come straight out of that thread there and bend immediately on that thread. Well, then I've got to ask myself, once I've done that, firstly, can I then get that in and out? Probably not. And then can I get it in the core plug in the engine? Possibly not. So I think I've got to try and then see what happens. So I'm either going to succeed and I'll be able to fit this, or I have to throw this away. And this is no good because all the wires are disintegrated inside. Could I rewire this and take this apart? Well, maybe, but it's not an ideal scenario. So I think firstly, can I straighten this? I don't know what the consequences of this being much longer are. Now I know I've got to put that bend back on there, otherwise it won't go in. And now I need to bend it round something to produce that nice curve in a way I can get that on and off. Yeah, and I've got to continuously make sure I can get that in the engine block. You've got to pull and not bend it to try and manipulate it round around the corner. And then I also need to put that bend back into there. And I need that to sit flush, and the circlip to go back in. I'm sure we're going to have to adjust this slightly to get it in. But let's see if we can get it in the engine block. Not a monkey's chance of getting that in there. So I've got to have another bend somewhere about there to see if I can manipulate that in. Okay, so we've got a bit more of a hook on it now. We can't persuade that to... Oh, you're almost there. Yeah, we're getting there. But then I wonder, is that hooked over too much now? And is there more room in a different position within the block? No, because that's hitting the back there now. Yeah, so it has to go. I don't think it can go down. Looking at the shape of the block, the water jacket narrows as it reaches the bottom of the pistons. I don't think it can go up. I'm nearly there. But I'm pretty sure now I can't get it in without this hook on it, and I'm pretty sure that hook is coming back and hitting the side of the block. If I could get it in straight, let's see if I can take that bend out a bit. I'm almost back to where I started with it, where I couldn't actually get it in, but if I can manage to get this in, then I think I've got half a chance of being able to get it in the right position. But it's hitting the internals of the, you know, I fear now it's too long. It's almost there at that point, but I can see that's not going to thread in straight. I don't know what's either side, so now am I this much too long, and I can't obviously shorten this or change it. I'm lucky to get away with what I've got away with, really. But now I just don't think it's gonna... Yeah, I just need to get that threaded in there like that, and I'm good. Right, so I've got that in, I've got it tightened up, and I've put back in the two bolts that were holding this plate to hold the old one in, because we don't need this, but we'll keep it, obviously. Now I have to put back the accelerator, where's that little clip? The accelerator rod, and replace both diesel lines. So we'll do that next and put everything back as it was. This is for the other end, which I don't have, but I do know that fits on there like that. Okay, that's the diesel lines reconnected. Should I sidetrack myself and do the diesel filters? Now, no, let's go back now and install the rocker cover. So that's the engine heater done, diesel lines reinstated, accelerator rod reconnected. how we do that part of it. So as you can see, I've painted the rocker cover. It was far more damaged, burnt, than I was expecting to find inside. Far worse. So I've done some things to, yeah, okay. Couple of O-rings on there. Okay. So that is now the new alternator fitted with the brackets, the adjustment bar. I need to get the correct size fan belt. And now all the rubber hoses, all the hydraulic hoses. The hydraulic system is finished, all bar a filter and oil change. The water system has all its hoses on. I'm ready to connect up the radiator there. And then I'm ready to connect up these to the cab heating. Yeah, my box of hoses has now been reduced to nothing but electric cable. So that's all the hoses and the replacement kit. Everything, that's the gasket, that's the top end done. That's a lot of progress, that is. And one of the big things we're going to have to look at and repair is the radiator. Right, this has got some major damage to this. So I've got to see if I can repair that. It's basically ready to accommodate that. I'm seeing, is that diesel down there? Yeah, maybe, where I took the diesel lines off. Okay, on this side, we're done with the replacement engine heater. We need to do an oil change, oil filters and diesel filters. And then we're kind of looking at getting into all that. But the mechanics of it and the rubbers and the hoses, we're pretty much there on that now.